Don't you dare bring that up right now. Josh's voice cut through the quiet morning as he gripped his coffee mug tightly, his frustration palpable. We were sitting at the breakfast table, and his words struck me like a physical blow. I just think we should wait a few more years before trying for a baby. A lump formed in my throat as I stared at my untouched plate, struggling to hold back tears. My name is Julie, and I am 33 years old. I work as an elementary school teacher in Austin, Texas. For the last 2 years, I had convinced myself that our inability to conceive was just an unfortunate struggle, something beyond our control. I had spent countless hours tracking my cycle, adjusting my diet, and seeking out the best fertility specialists in the city. Each negative test felt like another personal failure, and I blamed myself completely. Was I too anxious? Was my diet wrong? Was there something fundamentally broken within me? Through it all, Josh had been there, holding me close when I cried, stroking my hair, and whispering reassurances that it would happen when the time was right. But that morning's argument wasn't just another disagreement about children. Something about Josh's reaction felt different this time. Lately, he had been more defensive, his tone sharper, and I couldn't understand why. Still rattled from our fight, I decided to tackle the clutter in the attic that afternoon while he was at work. A doctor had once advised me to stay busy to manage my anxiety, and at that moment, I desperately needed a distraction. I was sorting through old boxes when I stumbled upon it, a manila folder shoved inside a dusty storage container labeled 2022 tax docs. At first, I almost set it aside, but then I noticed Josh's name on one of the documents peeking out. My hands trembled as I pulled it free. The letterhead read Austin Medical Center, dated March 15, 2022, exactly 8 months before our wedding. This letter confirms your vasectomy procedure has been successfully completed. The words blurred as my hands clenched the paper, my entire body frozen in shock. 2 years. 2 years of self-blame, of tears, of endless medical appointments wasted. Josh had known. Through every doctor's visit, every heartbreaking negative test, every night I had collapsed into his arms in despair, he had always known. And he had said nothing. A slow, icy fury crept through me, unlike anything I had ever felt before. This wasn't just anger. This was betrayal on a level I couldn't comprehend. I forced myself to smooth out the crumpled paper, carefully placing it back exactly as I had found it. Then, with a steady breath, I walked downstairs, brewed myself a cup of tea, and began to plan. Josh had no idea what was coming. But he was about to find out exactly what his deception would cost him. Sitting at the kitchen table, I stared into my tea, my thoughts racing. The version of my husband I had believed in was disintegrating, replaced by someone I barely recognized. How many times had he watched me crumble under the weight of disappointment? How many times had he pretended to comfort me while knowing the truth? My phone buzzed on the table. A text from Josh. About this morning? I'm sorry, I snapped. Let's talk when I get home. Love you. My hands trembled as I read the message. Even now, he was maintaining the act. I thought about the thousands of dollars we had poured into fertility treatments he knew would never work. The doctors, the supplements, the invasive procedures, the therapy sessions I had started because I thought I was failing. I scrolled through my phone's camera roll until I found a picture from 6 months ago. Josh and I, smiling at my sister Rachel's baby shower. I remembered how I had excused myself to the bathroom that day, breaking down in tears. Josh had followed me in, wrapping his arms around me and whispering, "Our time will come, honey. We just need to be patient." That memory alone made me feel physically sick. I opened my banking app and started adding up the expenses, the specialists, the tests, the treatments. The numbers climbed higher and higher until the total made my stomach turn. Over $15,000 wasted. Money that could have been used for a down payment on a house, for travel, for anything that wasn't built on a lie. But confronting him outright would be a mistake. Josh was cunning. He had manipulated me for years, letting me believe I was the problem. If I acted too soon, he would find a way to twist this, to make me question my own reality. No, I needed to be smarter. I needed a plan. I grabbed my laptop and started searching for divorce attorneys. Then, I remembered Sarah, my old college roommate who now worked as a financial advisor. Last year, she had helped a mutual friend navigate a particularly messy divorce. I made a mental note to call her first thing tomorrow. Josh's betrayal wasn't just about the vasectomy or the years of deceit. It was about something much bigger. He had let me suffer, let me doubt myself, let me waste my time, my money, my hope, all while playing the role of the supportive husband. He had stolen more than just my trust. He had taken away my right to make choices about my own future. But now, I was taking that choice back. At precisely 6 o'clock, I heard Josh's car pull into the driveway. Taking a deep breath, I straightened my posture and rehearsed my expression one last time. I had carefully erased any trace of my earlier discovery, ensuring the attic appeared untouched, just as it had before. Meanwhile, the comforting aroma of cannelloni filled the house, the meal I had prepared, his favorite. But now, the thought of cooking for him churned my stomach. As he stepped inside, briefcase in hand, his voice carried through the space. "Something smells amazing," he remarked. He approached, attempting to place a kiss on my cheek, but I shifted away, reaching into the cabinet as if searching for something. He hesitated for a moment before speaking again, his tone gentle. "About this morning. I know you're frustrated. Maybe we could explore more natural fertility treatments? I've been reading about a holistic doctor who might help." I almost laughed at the irony. There he was, presenting yet another hopeless solution, fully aware that none of it would work. Instead, I forced a smile and met his gaze. "Maybe you're right about waiting," I replied, watching him closely. "We could take a break from trying." A fleeting expression of relief crossed his face, subtle, but unmistakable. "I think that would be good for us," he agreed, reaching for my hand. "You've been so stressed lately." Stressed. That was his explanation. As if stress was the issue, and not the secret vasectomy he had never told me about. During dinner, I let him dominate the conversation, nodding occasionally as he spoke about his day at the real estate office. But my mind was elsewhere, on the call I had made to Sarah earlier that afternoon while he was at work. She had given me the name of a reputable divorce attorney and urged me to start gathering financial records. "I've been thinking," I said casually, moving my food around my plate. "Maybe I should look for a higher-paying teaching position. You know, for when we do start our family." Josh's face brightened with approval. "That's a great idea, honey. You're an amazing teacher. Any school would be lucky to have you." His effortless deception made my blood simmer. Sarah had warned me I needed to start documenting his lies. Everything could be useful in the divorce. "I might stop by the bank tomorrow," I continued, keeping my voice light. "Check out our savings options." He responded too quickly. "I can handle the finances. You don't need to worry about that." But I did need to worry. According to Sarah, Josh had been subtly moving money between accounts for months, small amounts, carefully spaced apart, nothing that would immediately raise suspicion. Was he preparing for the day I uncovered the truth? Or had this always been part of his deceit? I studied him as he enjoyed his meal, chatting about his weekend plans. He was so confident, so sure that he was in control. He believed he could manipulate me forever. He had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I called in sick to work. As soon as Josh left for the office, I got in my car and drove downtown to meet Patricia Walker, the divorce attorney Sarah had recommended. Her office was in one of those sleek high-rises that made me feel underdressed just walking through the lobby. As I sat down, Patricia gestured for me to begin. "Your friend Sarah gave me a general idea of the situation," she said, her sharp eyes assessing me. She looked to be in her 50s, her blazer crisp, her demeanor professional. "But I need to hear the full story from you." I pulled out the manila folder containing the photos I had taken in the attic and recounted the past 2 years, the fertility treatments, the lies, the financial discrepancies Sarah had uncovered. Patricia took notes, her face unreadable, but I noticed her jaw tighten when I mentioned the timeline. "He had the vasectomy before the wedding," she confirmed, her voice firm. "And he never disclosed it?" I nodded, swallowing back emotion. He watched me go through all of those treatments, knowing they wouldn't work. Patricia's pen stopped moving. "This isn't just deception," she said, her tone steely. He allowed you to spend significant amounts of money on medical procedures he knew were pointless. That could be considered financial fraud. She pulled out a fresh legal pad. First, we need to secure your financial situation. Open a new account at a bank he's never used. Start moving small amounts of money, nothing that would raise suspicion. I hesitated. What about the vasectomy records? Should I take them? She shook her head. Don't remove anything from the house yet. We'll subpoena those records directly from the medical center. More importantly, document every new lie he tells. Texas is a one-party consent state for recordings, which is in our favor. My hands trembled as I jotted down notes. The whole thing felt surreal, like I was strategizing a military operation rather than dismantling my marriage. Before I left, Patricia gave me one last piece of advice, her expression softening just slightly. Don't confront him yet. Men like your husband are skilled at manipulation. If he suspects you know, he'll start covering his tracks. I stepped out of her office with a detailed action plan and a strange sense of calm. My first stop was the bank, where I opened a new account and applied for a credit card in my name alone. After that, I went to my doctor's office to retrieve copies of all my fertility treatment records, concrete proof of the enormous amount we had spent on procedures that Josh had always known were futile. Upon returning home, I noticed a text from him waiting on my phone. Heard you weren't feeling well. Want me to grab some soup on my way back? I stared at his message, recalling all the moments he had played the devoted husband. The times he had thoughtfully brought me remedies for morning sickness when I believed I might be pregnant. The way he had massaged my feet after each heartbreaking doctor's appointment. The comforting presence he had offered when every test came back negative. That would be nice, I replied, making sure to add a heart emoji. If he wanted to keep up this act, I could play along just as well. The rest of my afternoon was spent meticulously combing through our records, capturing photographs of anything that seemed significant, bank statements, tax filings, investment portfolios. Then, in one of Josh's drawers, I stumbled upon a stack of real estate documents, listing properties I had never even heard of. Clearly, his deception extended far beyond his secret vasectomy. Just wait. I whispered under my breath as I carefully put everything back in its place. Just wait. The waiting game. The following week tested every ounce of my self-control. Each morning, I kissed Josh goodbye as if nothing had changed. Each evening, I sat through his work stories, nodding along and offering the appropriate smiles, all while discreetly collecting evidence. My phone's voice recorder app became my most trusted ally. Meanwhile, Sarah's deep dive into our financial records uncovered much more than just minor discrepancies. She found 2 investment properties, purchased a year before our wedding, that I had never known existed. The initial payments had come from an account that had always been off-limits to me. When I mentioned this discovery to Patricia, she immediately filed for additional financial disclosure. Your husband has been planning this for quite some time, she stated during our follow-up meeting. These properties, the hidden accounts, the vasectomy, it's all part of a deliberate pattern of deceit. But nothing could have prepared me for the call I received from Dr. Martinez, my fertility specialist. Mrs. Anderson, I noticed something unusual while reviewing your medical file, she said cautiously. Your husband contacted our office multiple times, asking us to delay certain treatments. I gripped my phone tighter. He did what? He told us you were feeling anxious about the procedures and needed additional time. Specifically, he requested that we postpone your hormone therapy sessions, saying you weren't emotionally ready, she explained. She hesitated before adding, given what you know now, I thought you should be informed. As soon as the call ended, nausea overwhelmed me. I barely made it to the bathroom before I was sick. Josh hadn't just stood by as I suffered, he had actively interfered with my treatments. All those delays I had attributed to scheduling issues were actually his doing. That evening, he walked in with takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant, setting the bags on the counter with a casual smile. Thought you could use something nice tonight, he said as he unpacked the food. You've seemed a little off lately. I forced a smile, though my thoughts were still spinning from what I had learned. Just work stress, I responded, watching him plate the dishes. Then, as if testing the waters, I added, "Actually, I've been considering stepping away from teaching for a bit. Maybe explore other career options." His head snapped up immediately. "What kind of options?" I shrugged, feigning nonchalance. "Not sure yet. Maybe something different. Real estate, perhaps." "You always talk about it like it's fascinating." His shoulders tensed. "Teaching has always been your passion," he pointed out quickly. "Plus, it's stable. That's important for when we start our family." His words, "when we start our family," made my stomach churn with rage. But I kept my tone light, nodding as though he had a point. "You're probably right. Just a passing thought." Uncovering more lies. Later that night, after Josh had fallen asleep, I carefully slid out of bed and reached for his phone. Patricia had strongly advised against doing anything that might legally jeopardize my case, but I needed answers. His call history revealed repeated conversations with a number I didn't recognize. I quickly jotted it down before placing the phone back exactly as I had found it. The next day, Sarah ran the number through her network of financial contacts. "It belongs to a divorce attorney in Houston," she informed me. "He's called them 6 times in the last month." So Josh had already been making his own preparations to leave. That was fine, because I was preparing too. But the next revelation came from an entirely unexpected source. While stopping by our usual coffee shop, Maria, the longtime barista who had witnessed my struggles over the years, caught my attention. "I've been meaning to tell you something," she said hesitantly, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "Your husband comes here sometimes with a woman." At first, I assumed it was work-related, but my pulse spiked. "But what?" She lowered her voice. "Last week, I overheard them talking about property investments and divorce lawyers. She mentioned making sure you didn't find out about certain accounts before everything was finalized." Maria placed a gentle hand on my arm, her expression filled with concern. "I know this isn't really my business, but after everything you've been through, I thought you should know." I barely managed to thank her before stepping outside. Sitting in my car, I gripped the steering wheel, my breath uneven. Josh wasn't just planning to leave, he was ensuring I had nothing left when he did. Sarah had previously mentioned a woman's name appearing on some of the property documents, Rebecca Wilson, a fellow real estate agent at Josh's firm. Suddenly, everything fell into place. That afternoon, I met with Patricia once more. "We need to move quickly," I told her, laying out the notes I had compiled. "He's scheming something with his colleague." Patricia reviewed the information and nodded. "Actually, this works in our favor. We've gathered enough proof of financial misconduct to file for emergency orders. This will allow us to freeze the accounts he's been hiding." "And the vasectomy records?" I asked. "The medical center confirmed the procedure date," she said. "It was done 8 months before your wedding, just as you suspected." She leaned forward, her expression serious. "Julie, we have enough on him: financial fraud, medical manipulation, and marital deception. The real question is, how do you want to proceed?" I inhaled deeply, my mind firm. "I want him to feel as powerless as I did. I want him to understand what it's like to have everything taken away in an instant." "Then we need to be strategic," she advised. "The element of surprise is crucial." That evening, as Josh stayed late at work, likely with Rebecca, I used the time to finalize my escape plan. A small apartment, paid in cash through one of Sarah's friends, was already secured. I had copies of every significant document and proof of every lie he had told over the past 2 years. The next morning, Josh seemed especially attentive. He made breakfast, asked about my plans for the day, playing the part of the devoted husband. "Actually," I said, keeping my expression as innocent as possible, "I was thinking about exploring those natural fertility treatments you mentioned. Maybe you could join me for the consultation." The flicker of panic that crossed his face was almost amusing. "Oh honey," he said quickly, "work is really overwhelming right now with this new development project." "The one with Rebecca Wilson?" I asked casually, watching as he froze. "You've been putting in a lot of hours on that." He chose his words carefully. "It's a complicated deal, lots of moving parts." I had no doubt. That night, I lay awake beside him, listening to his steady breathing. By this time tomorrow, Everything would be set in motion. Patricia was ready with the legal filings. Sarah had meticulously tracked each hidden account and suspicious transaction. Even Dr. Martinez had provided a detailed statement about Josh's interference with my treatments. Soon, he would know exactly what it felt like to have his entire reality dismantled. I selected Sunday morning for the confrontation. Josh was at the kitchen table, sipping his coffee and scrolling through his phone, completely oblivious to what was about to unfold. "Hey," I said, placing a set of documents in front of him. "I found something interesting in the attic. Want to explain this?" The color drained from his face. His coffee cup rattled against the saucer as he reached for the papers with unsteady hands. "Julie, I can explain." "Explain what?" I cut in. "How you had a vasectomy 8 months before our wedding. Or how you let me blame myself for 2 years, knowing full well that it was impossible for me to conceive." He shot to his feet, the shock on his face morphing into desperation. "I was going to tell you." "When?" I interrupted sharply. "After how many more failed fertility treatments? After how many more nights of watching me cry myself to sleep? Or were you just waiting until you and Rebecca had your exit strategy finalized?" His head snapped up at the mention of Rebecca. "How did you?" "I know everything, Josh," I said, my voice unwavering. "The hidden properties, the secret accounts, the calls to the divorce attorney in Houston. While you were busy playing your games, I was building a case." "A case?" His voice cracked. "Check your email. Our lawyers will handle all communication from now on." I turned to walk away, then paused. "Oh, and those accounts you thought were safe? They're frozen. Good luck explaining that to the judge." Josh scrambled after me, his composure crumbling. "You can't do this to me. Those properties, those accounts, they're mine." I stopped and faced him. "Actually, according to Texas marriage laws, they are marital assets that you illegally concealed. Patricia says the judge will be very interested in that, along with your medical deception." His face twisted with anger. "You went through my private medical records?" The accusation was so absurd, I almost laughed. "Like how you called Dr. Martinez's office to delay my fertility treatments. Or how you and Rebecca have been planning your own strategy for divorce." "That's different," he started, but I didn't let him finish. "You're right," I said, my voice calm but firm. "It is different. Because while you were systematically breaking my trust and letting me suffer, I was documenting everything. Every lie, every hidden account, every manipulation. And now it's all out in the open." His phone buzzed, and I could see the realization settling in as he read the legal notices about the frozen accounts. His face grew paler by the second. I looked at him one last time, my voice barely above a whisper. "I trusted you. I loved you. You let me believe that something was wrong with me while you knew the truth all along," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "Julie, please, we can fix this," he pleaded, his voice breaking with desperation. "I can explain everything." Without hesitation, I reached for the bag I had packed in advance, sitting behind the door. My expression remained firm as I met his gaze. "Then you can explain it to the judge. I'm sure they'll be very interested in hearing why you allowed your wife to go through 2 years of fertility treatments while secretly making sure it was impossible." As I stepped outside, I heard the sound of him collapsing into a chair, the weight of his actions finally sinking in. His world was falling apart, just as mine had in that attic.